do it. We got a lot of stories for you today, uh, and how, of course, this regime is continuing to take over, to take the levers of power and use them against the citizenry. We got Pam Bondi trying to get rid of DOJ's the conflicts of interest, the ability for members of the DOJ to recuse themselves if they have a conflict of interest. That's now going to be her purview. So she's going to make that decision if this rule goes through. Of course, we also have an admission by the Trump administration about Doge and how they accessed private voter data and handed it off to election deniers. I kid you not. We've got that. The Trump EPA basically says you are worth absolutely nothing to us. Okay. And I'm going to get into the details of that. I'm not going to say anything more until the story, of course. And then we've got Minnesota, what's going on there, and how federal officers are now going after off duty cops. So, oops, we've got that going on here. So it's setting up a fight, a potential fight between law enforcement agencies, federal law enforcement, and local law enforcement. And of course, we also are going to talk about some of the deplorable conditions inside of ICE detention centers, concentration camps, whatever you want to call them, and how they are just basically going without medical care now. The people there, they're not getting any medical care. So, and as if it's not like they were getting good medical care before, but now it's non-existent. And I've got the details of the breakdown in that story. So, there's a lot of terrible stuff going on here today in this country. No surprise, since we voted in probably the worst president we've ever had. And that's not an exaggeration. Okay, at least it's the worst president I've had in my lifetime. Maybe there were worse, but oh my god, I tell you what, history is not going to be kind to this fascist administration. With that said, those of you who are listening and watching this live, please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Those of you who are listening on the different platforms this is going up on, or this has been put up on, please, like, follow, subscribe, help out, all that stuff. If you enjoy listening to all the horrific news, or at least if you like my take on it. With that said, let's start out with Pam Bondi and how, she's basically doing a power play at the DOJ. Okay. Imagine a world where a prosecutor, someone with a massive financial stake in a company or a personal grudge against a defendant, is forced by the government to handle that case. No stepping aside, no ethical boundaries, just raw, centralized power. Power. Overwhelming power. Unlimited power. Well, friends, welcome to 2026. Okay. The Trump administration isn't just bending the rules of the Department of Justice, they're trying to delete them entirely. So if you've been following the news this week, you might have seen a headline that sounds pretty dry, right? I mean, drier than Ben Shapiro's wife. Okay. And it's, yes, dry legal jargon, but it's actually a code red for our democracy. Trump administration is proposing a rule change that would effectively eliminate the Department of Justice, the ability of Department of Justice attorneys to recuse themselves from cases due to having a conflict of interest. Remember, for over a century, recusal has been a safety valve in our legal system. It's what keeps prosecutions from becoming personal vendettas or political favors. But under a new proposal expected to hit the Federal Register any day now, Attorney General Pam Bondi would become the sole gatekeeper of ethics. Now, remember who Pam Bondi is, all right? a former prosecutor, attorney general in Florida that basically stopped the case against the Trump organization for running a fake college. Okay. So she just let that whole thing slide, stopped doing any prosecutions on that. That's who Pam Bondi is. And now she's going to be the gatekeeper of ethics. Yeah. So that means if she wants a loyalist on a case, they stay on the case. Conflict or no conflict, doesn't matter. So I want to break down how this is dismantling our justice system in real time and who it's designed to protect, and why this is a massive step towards the centralization of power, the very thing that a lot of us have been warning y'all about. So let's look at the before and after, okay? Now, currently, the DOJ standards require attorneys to step aside if there's even the appearance of a conflict of interest. It is codified in federal statute. It is not a suggestion, okay? It is a duty. The new rule, however, flips the script. Recusal is no longer considered a duty. It is a privilege that only Pam Bondi is allowed to grant. According to senior administration sources, career prosecutors and political appointees alike will be barred from recusing themselves unless they are personally excused by the attorney general. Here's that excuse, right? Well, the president believes that conflicts have been used as a weapon by the deep state. So understand what that means. They are calling ethics a weapon of the deep state. Okay. Again, this is part of the classic authoritarian playbook, right? You take a foundational safeguard meant to ensure fairness and rebrand it as sabotage so that you can justify tearing it down. By centralizing this power, Bondi can ensure that the people hired to do a job, as the administration puts it, actually do it, regardless of whether they have a massive financial or otherwise conflict of interest. So why now? Well, look at who they've put in charge, right? I mean, we've been seeing names like Alina Habba and Lindsay Halligan. Halligan, of course, no longer in that position after a judge smacked her down, but still, these were Donald Trump's personal lawyers that were wearing the badge of special attorneys. Okay. I mean, federal courts have already pushed back. As I mentioned, judges in New Jersey and New York have invalidated several of these acting appointments because they bypassed the statutory confirmation process. And last week, Halligan, however, actually accused a federal judge of a gross abuse of power because the judge questioned her authority in cases involving James Comey and Letitia James. Now think about that, right? So the people who are supposed to represent the law are attacking judges for asking if these people are legally allowed to be there. This new recusal rule is a shield for these loyalists. Okay. If a judge or an ethics board says, hey, Alina Habba, you shouldn't be prosecuting Trump's enemies because of her obvious ties, Bondi can say, I don't care. She stays. Which has the effect of transforming the DOJ from a Department of Justice into a Department of Just Us. And it's not happening in a vacuum. Look, you know the establishment, especially establishment Democrats, have their flaws, right? Of course. And I talked about that at length. But what we're seeing right now under the Republicans is the systematic removal of every internal alarm and every guardrail. In late 2025, the administration pushed out senior career officials from the Office of Professional Responsibility, which is the unit responsible for policing ethical misconduct inside of the Department of Justice. Basically, lobotomizing the department's own ethics office. And you only do that, of course, if you plan to be super unethical. And it gets worse. They've announced a new affirmative litigation structure that puts these units in direct communication with the White House and likely Stephen Miller. Their explicit task, targeting states and entities that obstruct federal policies. In plain English, they are building a legal heat-seeking missile aimed at blue states and anyone who dares to say no to the executive branch. I mean, so look, the question, of course, is this legal? Probably not. Once this hits the Federal Register, the lawsuits are going to fly faster than a Trump post on Truth Social, okay? First, there is the Administrative Procedure Act. The government can't just flip a century of policy on its head without some sort of reasoned explanation. And because we want to, or because we can, is not a legal reason, okay? Second, there is due process. That concern. If you're a defendant and the person prosecuting you has a clear personal bias, but is forbidden from recusing, your constitutional right to a fair trial is being flushed down the drain. And the Trump administration would know a thing or two about flushing, okay? But here's the kicker. Federal law actually requires the Attorney General to maintain regulations governing disqualifications for conflict of interest. This new rule doesn't just change these regulations, it effectively nullifies them. So understand that this is more than just boring lawyer talk, okay? This is pretty serious. This is about whether the law applies to the powerful or if the powerful own the law. By eliminating recusals, the Trump administration is trying to ensure that no one, not even a prosecutor's own conscience or ethical code, can stand in the way of the president's agenda. Now, there is a small window for us to act. When this rule gets published, it does trigger a mandatory public notice and comment period. That means that, of course, we could flood the Federal Register with objections. Whether or not that will stop them from doing so remains to be seen. But it never hurts to try. Because at the end of the day, we cannot let them dismantle the guardrails in the DOJ in the dark. If they're going to do it, then they're going to do it in front of all of us in the light. And everyone will be forced to see it.
I'm going to dunk on our side for a little bit because in this platform, in this setup, I have the ability to talk to you a little bit more. I've been talking to the right wing a lot. If you're a regular WYCD viewer, if you're part of the Wicked community, you will have seen. I'm talking to the right wing a lot in vertical streams, and I find it fascinating how inaccurate of an idea they have about who we are. Not that they hate us. That doesn't surprise me. We wade through hatred from all angles constantly. We're hated by the Democrats. We're hated by the Republicans. We are hated by MAGA. We're hated by ourselves from time to time for our own failures. Hatred doesn't surprise me, but the inaccuracy of their opinion of us, that surprised me. They accuse us of being supporters of people that we would love to see leave politics forever. I don't know if you know this, but that's pretty significant. That's, I think, a possible path to getting out of this, if we can reverse those misconceptions. But we should also be aware of what those misconceptions that they have about us imply about our own information ecosystem. How much do you know that isn't actually accurate? How much are you absolutely sure of that actually is not true? As somebody wiser once said, it's the things you absolutely know that kill you. I don't think, in the broad strokes, we are incorrect about who MAGA is, if I'm being frank with you. I think when we turn over the rock, as somebody else pointed out to me, we're going to find out that if we were wrong about them wanting to put trans people in the gas chambers, it's only going to be because what they actually want to do is put trans people in a giant pit and then fill in the pit with cement. It will be that we were wrong about them in some small ways, in whatever that word that means, semantics, phrasing, I suppose. But when it comes to communicating to them, when it comes to swaying them, when it comes to getting people to support us in numbers that we require to get anything done, those miscommunications add up. So, I want to have a real harsh look at our own side today. I want to look at some leftist media with a critical eye, and in a way that I would not do in the vertical stream, because the vertical stream audience couldn't appreciate this. And even though I'm normally okay with embarrassing ourselves a little bit, I don't want to dishonor ourselves in front of them. There's a difference between those things. A dear friend of mine sent me this earlier today. Let me try that again. I am going to play the video, but I'm not going to play the audio because I don't actually want to show you this video. I'll summarize it for you. So here's the supposed leftist that got shared with me earlier today. So this was a video by this kid. He's got the really nice mic set up in a little studio and all that. Good setup here. Really reasonable. Seems like somebody you shouldn't disagree with at all, right? Except the video he's sharing, a neo-Nazi just had his life saved by a black man. Okay, that seems like fodder for us, right? We're, after all, constantly trying to express that, black and brown folks are heroes. Wait, are we? No, we're just trying to express that black and brown folks are human beings. Like regular, like the rest of us, like no better, no worse. Okay, well, a great way to show that is to show that sometimes they can be heroes, like the rest of us, right? Sure, absolutely. Except that for that guy to be a hero, the rest of these people have to be villains. So what happens is this guy right here gets surrounded by a crowd. I assume this is real footage. I'm just going to assume that all this is real. That guy gets surrounded by a crowd, and they're pushing him and yelling because the guy's a neo-Nazi. And the black guy pushes his way through the crowd and drags the neo-Nazi away from the crowd. Says, "Come on," drags him away from the crowd, and the neo-Nazi, in a panic, follows him, abandons his morals of never cooperating with other races, I suppose. And all around, it's a feel-good story. And then, of course, this fresh-faced commentator says, "Oh, how wrong the right wing is about who we are. Oh, how wrong the right wing is." It sounds like stuff that you would agree with. Every element of that seems like something that would probably reinforce your worldview. Put it together, though. One thing that helps me visualize if I'm dealing with somebody, if I'm dealing with an honest message, is I imagine what the inverse of it would be. Yeah, Donald James X. Why are people more susceptible to right-wing propaganda? I guess commercialism really does work on people's brains, but that's what I'm telling you is I think this is left-wing propaganda, specifically centrist propaganda, and let me show you why. So it makes who seem evil. You've got four groups here. You've got the person who saved the guy that needed the neo-Nazi that needed saving. The crowd is trying to smoosh the neo-Nazi, and the commentator talking about it. Who's evil here? Who is depicted as the bad guy? The Nazi, because he's a Nazi, and the crowd, because they're being violent, of course. Who seems reasonable and decent? The black guy and the commentator. They chose to make him the black guy, capital B. That's how they identified it. They are, I think, doing centrist propaganda. What they want out of you is the impression that these crowds are dangerous. Extremism is dangerous. Having a strong opinion about politics this way or that is dangerous. But merely thinking that people ought to have human rights, that's as far as you should go. After all, that's supported by, look at this. This guy was such a hero that he was willing to set down his annoyance with this other guy who spends his life calling him all sorts of horrible things and save him. Now, let me be clear. I don't know if this video is AI. I don't know if that's a real event. Based on my impression of the character of black Americans and progressives in general, I would suspect it is true. I would suspect Jake Lang really was going to get his ass whipped. I don't think he was going to be killed, but I could absolutely see him getting an ass whipping. And I think that young man did, in fact, save him from an ass whipping. Again, not being killed, but an ass whipping. What makes me nervous is this freaking guy. Because I gotta tell you, in my heart of hearts, either this guy knew what he was doing, in which case you can't trust him. He is unworthy of it. Or he didn't know what he was doing, in which case you can't trust him. He's unworthy of it. In that very nice studio that I see he's got, this handsome Joe has made it seem like anybody that is trying to change the way America works is scary and should go away. That's the impression I got from this dude's video. Because he made leftists seem dangerous. He exaggerated the danger being presented by those leftists.
They're all Nazis. They're all insurrectionists. It's not debatable. It's just, I'm sorry. If you have read the Constitution of the United States of America, you would understand what I'm saying is not a matter of debate. It's a matter of fact. What we're seeing right now with politicians like Tim Walz and Chuck Schumer and Cory Booker did a whole thing recently is the follow-through of an insurrectionist party. We have two parties in this country, and they are both insurrectionists against the people of the United States. They have betrayed their oath, and that's just a matter of fact. Expelled and banned. If we want to throw them in prison, that's a matter of what we decide to do. But this is an illegitimate regime. Joe Biden was an illegitimate regime, not because he stole the election by a lot, but because he gave aid and comfort to insurrectionists. The minute Joe Biden walked into the White House, I would say let's give him 5 minutes. He had 5 minutes to arrest Donald Trump. All right, let me be generous. 10 minutes. All right. On January 20th at 12:10 p.m., that is the minute, 12:11 p.m., that is the minute Joe Biden became an insurrectionist. by giving aid and comfort to insurrectionists. And while Joe Biden is enjoying his prostate cancer at the ball game, here we are, getting shot in the face on live television. Americans are being trafficked from Minnesota to Texas to be killed in prison cells and starved to death, denied medical treatment. And this shit sucks. I'll tell you, this shit fucking sucks. I mean, this is not a good situation to be in here. Right? When I was young, I loved American history because I was raised in the United States of America and I always just had a liking for history. And so because I was a stupid fucking kid, I actually read about American history. When I was a teenager, I read the Constitution. I read a bunch of biographies about several presidents. I was just very interested in it because I was a stupid fucking kid, you know? And I thought, yeah, let me devote years of my childhood to American fucking history. Well, hey, I mean, here we are today where I'm doing a show about the 14th Amendment, I guess, but whatever. But yeah, on January 20th at 12:11 p.m., the entire Democratic Party became insurrectionist collaborators. And that's how we got here. The Republican Party of 2026 are insurrectionists that have succeeded in doing, you could call it a nonviolent revolution or coup d'etat. I would argue there's a lot of violence involved in Trump's rigging of the 2024 election. By the way, in case you didn't know, 3.5 million ballots in Democratic states were, in swing states, I should say, Democratic ballots were thrown in the garbage because of 1920s Jim Crow laws that Democrats never did anything to repeal or overturn. Kamala Harris did win the 2024 election by a lot, if you will. Maybe not by a lot. Honestly, it was the fact that she should have had at least 100 million votes, and it's pathetic that they got anything less than that. But either way, 3.5 million votes were thrown in the garbage can. If you don't believe me, you can use your search engine of choice to look into it yourself. But they stole the 2024 election, just like they stole the 2004 elections. And again, we had 4 years to actually do something. Really, again, we had 10 minutes. We had 10 minutes to do something, but whatever. Hey, if Joe Biden would have arrested all of them, and let's say like a 2 years in, hey, better late than never, right? Right? But hey, I guess better never than late is what Joe Biden said. But I want people to understand that the reason the government we have now exists is because in the 1860s, Abraham Lincoln chose a Confederate spy as his vice president, then decided to walk around in public and go to a fucking play. Like, you're going to a play during Reconstruction? Like, dude, like in public? Like, I'm sorry, dude. What the dumbest president in all of human history of any country, honestly. I mean, think about it. Abraham Lincoln, all-time dunderhead. What the fuck? So then, when he was shot in the head by a Confederate and the spy became president, and then the Republicans of the 1860s failed to hold him to account, the Confederate spy, that cemented the destruction of this country. It took a little while. But here we are in Fville. So when you have politicians like Tim Walz, are you seeing Tim Walz lately, by the way? Like the last few days, he keeps like posting these like weird postcards with like these green triangles or whatever the fuck. It's bizarre stuff that Tim Walz is doing. He's literally like, he's going on TV and like sucking Trump's cock. He's like grabbing a big ass dildo and performing oral live on television. I'm sorry, but there is no other choice. He has to go. Every Democrat that has failed to do anything in 2021, if you were in office in 2021, January 7th, or let's just prefer Biden's sake, January 21st, let's say, of 2021. If you are a Democrat at that time, do not pass go, motherfucker. Get the hell out of here. So I want people to know that there is a legal constitutional framework for saving this country. It does exist. It is not the 25th Amendment. That is only going to make things worse. The 14th Amendment is how we fix this country. But then that leads the question, does this country need to be saved? Do we really need this Constitution? Do we really, really need to cling to this? Maybe we should do a constitutional convention. And not like they did in 17 whatever the fuck. But maybe we should do an actual, real constitutional convention in this country. It might take years to get to that point. It took years from the Independence Declaration to actually ratify the Constitution. Took over 10 years or so to get to that point. It might take 20. It might take 30 years. So what do we do in the meantime while we draft a new constitution? The only answer that I can even think of is China or Europe or them both working together to occupy this country and oversee its transfer from one government to the next. I can't see any other scenario where we can get out of this. That's the best case scenario that I can see here. That is the best case scenario. This government needs to end. We kicked the can in 1865, and that can, well, I mean, it's been kicked a lot, so it's not looking so good. And, you know, it's probably made of tin if it's from the 19th century. I mean, did they have tin in 1860 cans? Not even sure. To be honest, I don't know when the widespread availability of the tin can was. It might have been after 1860. In fact, it definitely probably was. I mean, it makes no sense that it would be in 1860, but whatever. Okay, just fucking bear with me, okay? For the love of God, I'm trying my best. The only way out of this is for the rest of the world to get their shit together, because Americans cannot be trusted. We need a situation like what happened with Japan. You know, not the capitalism part, but the occupation and overseeing of a new government. Oh, don't even get me started with Japan. Fucking Hirohito got off and was doing fucking parades in the 1960s. While motherfuckers were being shipped out from America to die in Vietnam, one of the architects of World War II was doing fucking parades in the streets of Japan. So don't even this whole thing, we're living in a fucking, wow, everywhere on earth is just fucked beyond belief. But that's the only way out of this, is we need a new government. All the restrictions, all of the liberations or whatever of the original government, they served a purpose, you know, to ensure the wealth of slave owners and white people, but they need to go. I would say states as a concept. Look at Tim Walz. Look at Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom was just giving Ben Shapiro a fucking blowjob on live television. They lasted like an hour and a half. Gavin Newsom, what the fuck, man? I mean, I know that guy's a piece of shit, but does he have no self-preservation instinct? At a time like this, he's going to give Ben Shapiro a blowjob on live television and then go to Davos and try to talk tough again like a little piece of fucking shit. But states, they have abdicated their duty. Tim Walz has abdicated his responsibility, and instead of stepping aside and saying, I don't want to govern anymore, I'm not built for this, because let's be honest, Tim Walz is a pussy little baby bitch. Tim Walz just wants to fucking go play his Dreamcast. He doesn't want to be doing this government bull fucking shit. That's why he is not even running for re-election. But if you don't want to fucking do your job, How about you get the fuck out and let someone else do the fucking job that you refuse to do? If you, let's say, have a sort of like an office building or like a school or whatever that you are in possession of or whatever, and you have a janitor, and the janitor just shows up to work and then shits all over the bathroom, right? And then gets the shit and smears it on the ceiling, on the mirror. You know what you would want to do? You'd want to fucking get rid of the janitor and then get a new janitor, right? Like it's this is a no-brainer. But Tim Walz is currently defecating on live television and shoving the shit that came out of his asshole on the lens of the camera. That's what he's doing. That's what he's doing. And we're all watching it happen. And then he's posting these weird green triangle postcards. Mr. President, please, may I suck your dick, sir? When is the earliest convenience that I can suck your dick, Mr. President? So, you know, the states have abdicated their duty. They no longer need to exist. If states do not do something now, then they shouldn't exist. They should not exist. I'm sorry. The concept of the state, when you've got Texas invading Minnesota in California, that's what's happening. The Texas National Guard was deployed in places like fucking Los Angeles, right? ICE is recruiting neo-Nazis and Confederates from all across the country, mostly in the South and in places like Oregon, to invade Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnesota. So, states, what the fuck are they good for? At this point, I genuinely ask you, what the fuck is a state good for? What do they provide? Having state lines, what the fuck does that do for any of us? Doesn't do anything. So, this country is way past its expiration date, over 150 years past its expiration date, and the world is not safe. This is not an American problem. This is a global problem. You think you're safe in China when the pedophile rape gang has thousands of nuclear warheads? You think you're safe in Europe when a pedophile rape cabal has thousands of nuclear warheads? What? There's no amount of putting fucking aviators on that's going to change the situation. The entire world is in danger because a pedophile rape cabal has thousands of nuclear weapons. This is not an American problem. This is a worldwide issue. And you're seeing the leaders of Europe, they've over the last week, they've started to kind of figure out what's going on. Not a year ago. Not, I don't know, during Trump's first fucking term. But European leaders are starting to actually get a little scared, and good. They need to be scared. America is not going to fix itself. If it was, it would have done so by now. Americans, myself included, are losers. We're losers. You're seeing thousands of people do the best that they can to resist what's happening in Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnesota, while you and me watch it on TV, while Tim Walz is playing Crazy Taxi. We're abandoning them. You know it's true. I know it's true. Every city that is not doing the same thing Minneapolis is doing, unless you're building defenses, unless you're, stockpiling beans in your closet so that you can handle people stopping work and then you can feed them so that they can survive. Unless you're doing something like that, you have abandoned your fellow citizen.
This is the Danish MEP in case anyone was confused about how the Danes and Europe feels about Donald Trump's consistent threats to annex Greenland by any means necessary.
Let me put this in words you might understand. Mr. President, fuck off. Det var næsten sådan ordene lød, da jeg for et år siden stod på den selv samme talerstol og sagde meget klart, at hvis Trump...
I'm sorry, colleague, this is against our rules. As much as you might feel, or the room might feel in this, we have clear rules about cuss words, language that is inappropriate in this room. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it is unacceptable.
Oh, boo. Please, 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 this is not the time for mealy-mouthed civility politics. Oh, he said a bad word.
Even if you might have strong political feelings about this.
These aren't strong political feelings about this. This is a response. This is a response to a bully threatening the sovereignty of one of your members. This is the EU, is it not? Yeah, here come the barrel clutchers. And please don't swear when someone is threatening war in your country. Yeah, it's a bad look when you use when you drop the F-bomb. It's a really bad look. You know what else is a bad look? The president of the United States constantly threatening to annex your country. It's not profanity if that's all he understands. True. Nonetheless, I think that encapsulates the feelings. Trump is trying to threaten the sovereignty of another country. Seriously, F off. And honestly, I don't see why they felt the need to chastise this guy. But anyways, good on him, by the way. Good on the Danish representative. Good on him. Fantastic stuff. All right, folks, let's actually go over this blog post that came from the ACLU, pointing out some pretty disturbing stuff, and I think the main theme here is going to be operational security, or OPSEC. Folks, we really need to be careful. Whatever we post online, whatever we think is safe, it's not. The Fourth Amendment generally requires the government to get a warrant before searching your private information. That tracks. But government agencies are circumventing the intent of the Constitution by simply buying sensitive and personal data from private companies. That's right. They can just buy your data. Today, the ACLU published documents obtained from the DHS, shedding light on how ICE, Customs and Border Patrol, and other parts of DHS have bought access to huge amounts of highly sensitive location data harvested from people's cell phones that enables the government tracking our movements over time. So, fantastic stuff. Good stuff. You only got a polite warning when MEPs talk against Russophobia, the microphone gets cut off. We filed a FOIA against DHS in 2020 for records about its practice of purchasing bulk access to cell phone location information gathered from smartphone apps. In 2022, we posted thousands of pages of previously unreleased documents, but our litigation continued, and today we are publishing the additional records we've obtained over the last several years. Although the DHS announced in 2024 that it was ending its contracts with data brokers for access to bulk cell phone location data, recent reporting indicates that the agency is getting back into the business of mass tracking Americans' phones, giving these records renewed relevance. Yeah. So if you thought this was just about undocumented immigrants, you know, the brown people, the bad ones, right? You'd be wrong. You'd be wrong, because they are tracking anyone and everyone. In fact, just last week, 404 Media reported that ICE bought access to a social media and phone surveillance system that is designed to monitor a city, neighborhood, or block for mobile phones, track the movements of those devices and their owners over time, and follow them from their place of work to home to other locations. It addresses the intent to cause harm before the actual crime is committed. Yeah, exactly. This is Minority Report. When we published the first set of records we obtained from DHS, we highlighted some major revelations from the documents, including the huge volumes of location data at issue, how revealing the data can be about individual lives, and the self-serving attempts of the government contractors and DHS itself to minimize the quite obvious privacy implications of this surveillance. The new batch of documents further underscores the privacy concerns and legal questions raised by this practice. No kidding! No kidding. And this is, again, not even new. This is not even new, folks. Underscores the privacy concerns and legal questions raised by this practice, reinforces the pressing for need for strong legal protection like the bipartisan Fourth Amendment is Not for Sale Act, which would end the government's pattern of circumventing constitutional protection by purchasing data instead of obtaining a warrant from a judge. Yeah, but like tomato to me, I think the Fourth Amendment should apply regardless. I think that the government shouldn't be allowed to purchase data, private data, regardless. I think the Fourth Amendment should protect, ideally, should protect people from, and not allow government agencies like DHS to buy private data. It doesn't matter whether or not, Meta wants to sell to the government. That's irrelevant. They shouldn't be allowed to in the first place because that is a huge violation of privacy. By purchasing the data instead of obtaining a warrant from the judge. Yeah, you would ideally in a accurate representation of the spirit of what the Fourth Amendment is supposed to do, you should not, as the government agency, you as DHS should not be allowed to buy private information from any company, whether it be cell phone records, social media, whatever. You should not be allowed to buy that without the warrant of without a signed warrant from a judge because you're looking for a specific crime or whatever, right? Like there has to be a articulable reason as to why a judge would sign a warrant for you to be able to purchase that data or obtain that data from the companies. However you want to complete that operation is besides the point. But it should require a warrant regardless. Among the new documents is a 2-page legal memo from ICE providing our most detailed look into yet into the agency's attempt to craft legal justification for purchasing access to highly sensitive information without a warrant. The memo claims that the purchase location information is different from cell phone location data at issue in the Carpenter versus U.S., an ACLU case in which the Supreme Court ruled the government needs a warrant to obtain cell phone location history directly from the service provider because of the privacy of life those records can reveal. The ICE memo, which is heavily redacted, appears to attempt to distinguish the purchase location data from the cell phone location data at issue in Carpenter on a ridiculous technicality that this newer data is tied to phones' mobile advertising ID known as MAIDs or ADIDs instead of phone numbers or names, but that is a distinction without a difference. ADIDs are unique alphanumeric codes assigned to each device. Although some have described these identifiers as a way to target advertisement without identifying individuals, that promise of privacy is illusory. The entire industry now exists to enrich ADID-linked location data with personal and historical information. The combined data reveals a highly sensitive information about users' lifestyle, routines, the people they meet, and these companies selling this location data to the government know this. They plainly say so in the marketing materials. What you do and where you do it, it defines who you are. Fantastic stuff. According to a Gravy Analytics solicitation that ICE received, because our partners of movement between home, work, because our patterns of movement between home, work, school, and other frequently visited locations are unique, the government agents can easily identify us by tracking our phones. Indeed, that's the entire point of this surveillance. Substituting ADIDs for phone numbers is little to prevent such tracking. So yeah, they are very, very invested in knowing what you're up to, because when stuff like this happens and they want to investigate protesters, i.e., dissidents, it makes it really easy to just to just track you and put you at whatever location of a protest, for example. So again, the underpinning lesson here is operational security, folks. Operational security. You have to understand that these are very real things. And now more than ever, it is important that we are aware. Similarly, nothing prevents federal agencies from identifying and linking this information, linking this location information to PII they obtained personal identifying information they obtain separately. Indeed, DHS privacy officer raised this exact concern. CBP should address how ADIDs become linked to an individual during the CBP analysis process, as well as retention of ADID in the vendor system within CBP systems and associated linked personal identifying information. In another document, Secret Service personnel also voiced privacy concerns, pointing out that one of the cell phone location data tools might in fact contain PII. That's right, reasonable articulable suspicion is a legal standard that allows police officers to stop and briefly detain a person if they have specific articulable facts suggesting the person may be involved in criminal activity. The standard is less than probable cause, but requires more than just a hunch or intuition. Yes. And I would say the same concept, the same concept should apply in theory in a perfect world that respects the Fourth Amendment, that respects the spirit of the Fourth Amendment, that you would need this type of standard, right? You would need to articulate to a judge why you need this data. Government records illustrate how invasive the tracking can be. In one document in ICE's possession, fantastic, the data broker Fville explains how its data aided in tracing one device observed at multiple locations throughout US and Mexico. In multiple cases, Fville provided geofence capabilities, which enable law enforcement agencies to identify every device in a specified area. Fantastic. CBP tracked phones to locations of law enforcement interests and monitored travel patterns. Secret Service email exchange explains how the data could be used by investigators to identify mobile device carried near popular border crossing points into the U.S. and pull up the historical location data for those devices, viewing where they've been preceding months. A technology the public is aware of has been used for the last decade. Maybe it's been used for longer. Today, the tracking is instant with fiber optics and AI. Yep. And of course, with the amount of data that's just out there, it's so easy. And DHS pays handsomely for all of this with taxpayer money. So we're the ones footing the bill to track ourselves. We're the ones footing the bill, giving the state this amount of power. Us, the taxpayers, are footing the bill for all this. Customs and Border Patrol entered into contracts with one company, Fville, in 2019 and 2020, totaling over $2 million, as a renewal subscription with another platform, Babel Street, in 2020 came to nearly $3 million. The Secret Service entered a 12-month contract with Babel Street for over $600,000 in 2019. Recent reporting indicates expenditures have continued, with ICE signing up yet another surveillance vendor, Penlink, this year. Fantastic. Yeah, pay for the phone and then tax to be tracked. Yep. I think I found some waste, fraud, and abuse here, don't you think? I think we found some waste, fraud, and abuse. Nobody expects that by carrying a phone, they are somehow consenting to let the government make a record of their every move. No, but we should all be assuming that that's how this works. The government scrabbling out for legal loopholes should not be allowed to cover for the massive privacy violations that this technology enables. Congress can end this warrantless mass surveillance now that the passage of the Fourth Amendment is Not for Sale Act, which would require the government to obtain a warrant from a judge before getting access to invasive data. That common sense protection is within reach. The legislation passed the House in 2024 with strong bipartisan support, and there's no good reason it couldn't advance further this year. State legislatures can also take up the fight to ensure that state and local police can't pay their way to pervasive location surveillance. Yeah, I mean, it's already bad with these. It's already bad enough with these cameras. With these AI, like automatic license plate readers or whatever the heck. That's already creepy enough as it is. Montana did so last year, and other states are poised to follow. The government should not be allowed to purchase its way around bedrock constitutional protections against unreasonable searches of our private information. There should be no end run around the Fourth Amendment. Right, like, I would say that it is against the Fourth Amendment, right? Like, the whole entire point is that there should be no unreasonable searches and seizures, right? And, like, yeah, I understand that this was written in a time where the internet didn't exist, but it's the same concept.
Anyway, I hope everyone is doing well. Oh, also, I might as well just talk a little bit about Mark Carney, because apparently people are talking about him. And everyone is fawning over him so much. It's just, you see, here's where my frustration lies. I get why a lot of people are very impressed with the speech that Mark Carney gave. I watched the whole thing and the little questionnaire that he did afterwards, and I understand it. But I guess I'm a little too cynical to appreciate it so much, because they're nice words that he did. So far, the only action to kind of back that up was the deal he made with China, which I am happy about because we should be cutting more ties with the Yanks. So I that was like the first thing that I'm actually like, wow, I full-heartedly agree with him on this EV deal with China. But my frustration, like, here's where the biggest of my frustration lies with this, is that the vast majority of people, both in Canada and outside of Canada, that's all they're going to know about Mark Carney, because we tend to live in a bubble here. If you're watching this, chances are you're more engaged with politics than the average person by far. Most Americans wouldn't even know the name of our current prime minister, but they might now, only because of this speech. And so a lot of people, again, both inside and outside Canada, will see this speech that he gave and think he's like this wonderful, great prime minister, that he's a wonderful, great person, and they won't know of all the bad stuff he's done. And he even alluded to it in his speech that he was giving, that he's still like a capitalistic monster, neoliberal to the core, bragging about cutting the capital gains tax and stuff like that. It was right there in the speech as well, that a lot of people might have overlooked or not paid attention to. But and he was bragging about how the resources in Canada and stuff, and how they're going to extract more and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yes, Bill C5, for Canadians that were plugged in know about that, how it will trample over environmental rights and, can force it through Indigenous sovereign land and all of that sort of stuff. Or the MOU that he recently signed with the Premier of Alberta. So a lot of people, they won't know that he passed one of the most conservative agendas in generations. They won't know that all the actions that he's doing is to fulfill capitalistic values. They won't know that he has a minister of AI, but not a minister for, DEI. They won't know that he is doing dick all when it comes to enforcing the Canada Healthcare Act. Well, Danielle Smith and Doug Ford are both busy privatizing it. And the federal government does have some power to prevent that. And he's doing nothing for us when it comes to that. They don't know all the bad stuff he's doing. So it feels like his reputation is being sanitized while he's still in office. And what this means is people are just going to be so grateful that he's our prime minister that they're not paying attention to the rest of the stuff, that they're not going to demand more of our leaders, that they're not going to ask for something better because of this one speech that he gave. And also, talk is cheap, because the only action I've seen him do that kind of backs up this speech was the China deal. But other than that, he's been kissing Donald Trump's ring over and over again. Yeah, I've been saying, I have this phrase now because he ran on the slogan of elbows up. And it's like, now available in Canada, knee pads for elbows, because he was bowing down to Trump over and over and over again. And this is the first time he kind of said anything that went against the USA, but he still didn't even say Donald Trump. He didn't name the monster. He was talking about like hegemony in US and blah, blah, blah. But he still didn't directly attack the United States and what they're doing, or the threat that we're currently under because of them. So I feel like, yeah. So let's get to my ranting about AI. So this is from OpenAI. In the coming weeks, we plan to start testing ads on ChatGPT, free and go tiers. We're sharing our principles early on how we'll approach ad-guided, putting users' trust and transparency first as we work to make AI accessible to everyone. Yes, it's going to be accessible to people. No. I'll get into a little bit of a rant after this. What matters most, responses in ChatGPT will not be influenced by ads. Of course, I believe that. Your conversations are private from advertisers. Oh, totally. Ads are always separate and clearly labeled. Plus, pro-business and enterprise tiers will not have ads. And so this is where we get into what I call the invisible inflation that a lot of people suffering with poverty have to deal with, is that things that used to be free are no longer free. And so if we just want to use this chat without the annoying ads, without it constantly being bombarded with things that we can't afford or want, we have to pay. We have to pay to get better service. And this is how a lot of people end up, having to spend more money. And it's kind of like with, airliners, how before all these things were included, but then you have to pay for this bag, then you have to pay for this, and all these extra add-ons. And so you can have the free version in which it's so bad and you suffer through it, but you have no choice to use it, or you ante up and you pay. And so, of course, this was going to happen. And so here we have Sam Altman, a billionaire that doesn't have to worry about all this shit. We are starting to test ads in ChatGPT, free and go, new $8 a month option tiers. Yes, because who doesn't have an extra spare $8 around when you're like living with dire poverty? Here are our principles. Most importantly, we will not accept money to influence the answers ChatGPT gives you, and we keep your conversations private from advertisers. It is clear to us that a lot of people want to use a lot of AI and don't want to pay. So we are hopeful a business model like this can work. So here's the thing. If there are people using ChatGPT and they don't want to pay, it's probably because there's a lot of people who can't pay. And so you're going to be bombarding the poorest people with ads that they don't want. They don't want to see it. I am like virulently anti-advertisement online too, with just how intrusive and in your face and so loud that they're constantly blaring at you, because it's almost like, if you have an extra penny, if you have an extra dollar here or there, how dare you keep it? How dare you use it for yourself? You need to be out there spending it. Give me all your money. And it's the way that the online, like the internet, sees us as a resource, not as individuals, not as people, but we are resources to them to make money. And so yeah, I despise ads. And even this guy here, once upon a time, was like, you know what, ads aren't that great. Because here we have.
Think of ads as like I kind of think of ads as like a last resort for us for a business model. I would do it if it meant that was the only way to get everybody in the world like access to great services. But if we can find something that doesn't do that, I'd prefer that. I kind of think of
so it's destructive to the environment for one thing, and then people become too reliant on it, and we'll actually get a little bit more into it with some of the things that I have lined up to talk about. It's that once it becomes like more accurate and people start relying on it more and believing everything that AI says, that's when the biggest damage can happen, because they're all programmed by people, humans. And we've seen this on Twitter a lot with Grok, how Elon Musk will actually change how Grok answers questions. And there's nothing stopping, this guy, this douche canoe, from doing the exact same thing. And so he can claim now that it's not about ads, or the ads won't be influencing the results. But here he was a while ago, this was in 2024, saying ads are our last resort. So how much can we really trust that he's going to not have their things influenced by advertisements and who's paying and things of that sort? But then once we become reliant on it, once we no longer fact check the AI, that's when they can change it. And who's doing the work anymore? Everyone's just become complicit with the results. And so who's actually going to fact check it and do the work to find out if this is still accurate, if what they're giving is biased answers or not? Like, they are stupefying the population, and it is absolutely horrendous what they're doing, because they don't want people smart enough to think. Because when people are smart enough to think, they realize that people like Sam Altman shouldn't exist. And I mean as in billionaires. They shouldn't exist. In a world where people are starving and unhoused and all of that sort of stuff, can't get the proper medical care they need, education, clothes, there should not be billionaires. And if billionaires were to actually spend their money on making the world a better place, it would be done. It would be done, because they have enough money to feed the world, to make sure that everyone has health care, to make sure that all of our basic needs are met. They have that money, they have that power, and instead they're choosing to hoard it even more and do more ads and charge people more money.
The states have abdicated their duty. They no longer need to exist. If states do not do something now, then they shouldn't exist. They should not exist. I'm sorry. The concept of the state, when you've got Texas invading Minnesota in California, that's what's happening. The Texas National Guard was deployed in places like fucking Los Angeles, right? ICE is recruiting neo-Nazis and Confederates from all across the country, mostly in the South and in places like Oregon, to invade Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnesota. So states, what the fuck are they good for? At this point, I genuinely ask you, what the fuck is a state good for? What do they provide? Having state lines, what the fuck does that do for any of us? Doesn't do anything. So, this country is way past its expiration date, over 150 years past its expiration date. And the world is not safe. This is not an American problem. This is a global problem. You think you're safe in China when the pedophile rape gang has thousands of nuclear warheads? You think you're safe in Europe when a pedophile rape cabal has thousands of nuclear warheads? What? There's no amount of putting fucking aviators on that's going to change the situation. The entire world is in danger because a pedophile rape cabal has thousands of nuclear weapons. This is not an American problem. This is a worldwide issue. And you're seeing the leaders of Europe, they've over the last week, they've started to kind of figure out what's going on. Not a year ago. Not, I don't know, during Trump's first fucking term. But European leaders are starting to actually get a little scared, and good. They need to be scared. America is not going to fix itself. If it was, it would have done so by now. Americans, myself included, are losers. We're losers. You're seeing thousands of people do the best that they can to resist what's happening in Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnesota, while you and me watch it on TV. while Tim Walz is playing Crazy Taxi. We're abandoning them. You know it's true. I know it's true. Every city that is not doing the same thing Minneapolis is doing, unless you're building defenses, unless you're, stockpiling beans in your closet so that you can handle people stopping work and then you can feed them so that they can survive. Unless you're doing something like that, you have abandoned your fellow citizen. And that's just a matter of fact. There's no amount of hand waving you can do. Oh, but what can I do? What can I do? I don't know, something that's not watching YouTube all day. But hey, whatever. Who am I, right? Who am I? But this country is over, and America will not save itself. And let's be honest, if America did get rid of Trump, if America did somehow get past this GOP takeover, if we have another election and they don't steal it, all these fantastical scenarios that seem less realistic than a nuclear fallout apocalypse. Let's be honest. What is more likely to happen by 2028 or 2029, January 21st, 2029? What is more likely? A nuclear apocalypse that kills all life on Earth, or a Democrat becoming a president? Think about it. I want you to sincerely ponder that question. What is more likely? That's not to say those are the only two options on the table, but I'm just saying if you compared those two options, my opinion, us all dying in nuclear hellfire is significantly more likely than a Democrat becoming president on January 20th of 2029. That's how I feel about the situation. So, if a Democrat were to become president, it would be someone like Gavin Newsom, a piece of fucking shit insurrectionist. America and Americans are garbage. Some of the worst human beings on planet Earth. Some of the worst human beings of all time in all of human history. It's not because necessarily we're so barbaric or uniquely barbaric, but we are uniquely negligent. That's not my problem, is the American ethos. And frankly, the rest of the world is not safe from American negligence. American negligence is what brought Trump to power in the first place. American negligence is what allowed Biden and Obama to rig the primaries in 2020. American negligence is what allowed Merrick Garland to do fucking nothing. American negligence is what allowed Donald Trump to steal the 2024 election. And American negligence is what's allowing over 40 people to die, be murdered by immigrations and customs enforcement. Not to mention the thousands of people that are just gonzo. We don't know if they're dead. We don't know if they're alive. We don't know where the fuck they are. They don't know where the fuck they are. And it's a matter of fact. It cannot be debated that this country is a piece of fucking shit and the people that live here are garbage. You might feel, well, I'm not garbage. I didn't vote for Donald Trump. Neither did I. But he's still the president. You let it happen. I let it happen. We all let it happen. We're all garbage. For the same reasons, I think Russians are garbage for allowing Vladimir Putin. And for the same reason, I think, well, I am on a shared channel, but still, you know what I'm about to say, or what I was. A population that does nothing while a dictator steals elections and destroys the planet is a population that has failed the call to action and cannot be trusted. Does that mean all Americans are as evil as Donald Trump? No, it does not. But it means that we are unable, both intellectually and physically, right? We are unable to do anything about it, and therefore we're useless. In the same way that when you go to the grocery store and purchase food, and then you take this food out of the box, you throw the box away because you don't need it anymore. It's not serving you anymore. That is Americans. They're garbage. All of us. We're all garbage. You know, when I was in school, a lot of people said, "Oh, wow, how did the Germans let it happen?" Because they're garbage. The Germans in the 1920s and 30s are scumbags. Even the best Germans were garbage. They might have been smart when it came to science. They may have been interpersonally compassionate when it came to their neighbors. But when push came to shove, they were useless fucking garbage. I don't mean garbage as you are evil. I just mean you are refuse. You have no meaning. You have no value. That doesn't mean we should get rid of you. I mean, that's evil, right? What it means is step the fucking side. That's what it means. It means you are not tall to ride this ride, okay? You must be this fucking tall to get on the goddamn roller coaster. Sorry, buddy, you're too short. That's what we are. We're too fucking short to ride the roller coaster. And the rest of the world needs to understand that. And to be honest with you, I don't know if there's a country on this planet that has any sort of claim to morality to any extent. So that's a separate conversation. But at the end of the day, we're garbage and we can't be trusted. The idea that people are being trafficked, shot in the fucking face, people are being undressed and marched out in like -10 centigrade on camera on live television. They're being forcibly undressed and marched out in handcuffs when you can get frostbite for just being outside for like 10, 20 minutes. It's all happening on live camera and no one gives a fuck.
Think your social security data is safe? Think again. Trump administration just made a jaw-dropping confession in federal court. Turns out Elon Musk's Doge team didn't just look at the budget. Of course, they were caught accessing private social security data and allegedly made deals with a group that tried to overturn election results. Look, this isn't just a leak. This is a blueprint for state-sponsored election interference. So let's get into it. Now, we've been following the Department of Government Efficiency, the so-called department. It's not actually a department. But, you know, it's called Doge or Doge or Doge, whatever, right? And been following it for a while, their actions, until, obviously, that department ended. Now, this whole boondoggle was marketed as a way to cut waste, fraud, and abuse. Yeah. But according to the new Department of Justice filings from January, it looks like the abuse was coming from inside the house. The call was coming from inside the house, folks. So now we have a formal admission that Elon Musk's operatives have been digging into sensitive Social Security Administration data. Now, a lot of you might be saying, well, yeah, we already knew that. That's not new news. Fair enough. But the admission is. And so is this next piece of information. You see, they were signing voter data agreements with partisan groups that tried to overturn elections. So, again, what did the government actually admit here? In a January 16th court filing, the Trump DOJ quietly corrected the record, so to speak. They admitted that at least 2 Doge employees, operatives handpicked by Elon Musk, former first buddy. Well, now he's first buddy again since he sucked up to Donald Trump, kissed the ring, and kissed whatever else. Okay, I don't want to get into that or give you any really bad mental images here. Okay, they certainly were kissing something. And now Elon Musk is back into Donald Trump's good graces. Okay. So now these people who worked for Elon inappropriately accessed private Social Security data back in March of 2025. Again, widely reported, right? So now remember, the SSA had previously denied that Doge had compromised any personal data. They said, oh, no, don't worry about it. Everything's fine. But these new filings show that one of these Doge team members actually signed something called a voter data agreement with an unnamed political advocacy group. What was the group's goal? According to court documents, they were seeking to overturn election results in certain states, swing states. Again, let that sink in, to borrow the phrase from Elon himself. You've got private tech bros working under the guise of government efficiency, accessing your Social Security records, and then huddling with groups whose sole purpose is to subvert the will of the voters. And now the DOJ admits that, oh, yeah, it's unclear if the data was actually handed over, but they explicitly stated that these operatives could have used SSA data to match against state voter rolls. This is, of course, the ultimate weaponization of federal data for partisan gain. And it gets worse because this was not just a policy disagreement. This was a total security collapse. The DOJ findings revealed that these two employees used unapproved third-party servers to share the data. Remember when they would get mad about Hillary Clinton, storing classified emails inside of a private server? Oh my God, lock her up! Lock her up! But wait, you took all of our data, our SSA, Social Security data, and stuck it in a third-party server. Accessible to who knows? I mean, this all confirms what a Doge whistleblower, Charles Borges, had warned us about months ago. He claimed that Musk's team was uploading a database containing information on hundreds of millions of Americans to an insecure cloud server. At the time, he was pushed out. He was ignored. Now, the government is quietly admitting, yeah, dude was right. Yeah, that is what happened. There's also a smoking gun email back from March of 2025 where a top Musk advisor was copied on an email containing a password-protected file with sensitive data on about 1,000 people. Now, the SSA says that they still have been able to open that file to see what's inside. We have billionaire-appointed goons, as some are calling them, running around with encrypted files of American citizens' data. And the agencies themselves are claiming to be locked out. Legal experts who know about this are frankly flabbergasted. I mean, you have Daniel Citron, a privacy law expert at the University of Virginia, speaking to the Washington Post, telling them that this is a blatant violation of the Privacy Act. Federal employees are only allowed to access data to do their specific jobs. Using it to help a political group overturn elections? That's not in the job description. The SSA has referred these employees for potential Hatch Act violations. That is the law that, of course, prevents federal workers from using their positions for political activity. House Democrats, they've been calling for a full criminal investigation, and they're pointing out the obvious. Elon Musk and his Doge team acted like that they are above the law and refused to appear before Congress. They weren't publicly identified and they weren't vetted. They were just given the keys to the kingdom and they immediately went for your data. So now this is where the leopards ate my face irony kind of hits the hardest, right? Because for years, the right wing has talked about privacy, right? Has talked about voter fraud, has talked about data integrity. They told their base that the system was being rigged. And then the moment these assholes get into power, what do? They bring in the private tech operatives to bypass security, access private citizen data, and coordinate with groups who are actually trying to rig the results. And they used the pretext of hunting fraud to commit the very interference that they claimed to be fighting against. This is a systemic strategy, okay? By framing voter rolls as dirty, they justify letting Musk's team dig through your private records. It's not about efficiency. It never was. It is about subversion. It is about using the power of the state to target specific voters and create narratives in order to justify overturning election results that are not favorable to them. Now, look, the Doge disaster ended 8 months early because it was a disaster. It saved no money. But that was not the point of it. That was not the point at all. And the damage that they have done, I mean, is already done. This confession proves that the guardrails protecting your data didn't just bend, they were dismantled on purpose, and that your private information was being used as a tool for political warfare. And if that doesn't piss you off, then I guess you weren't paying attention. You either weren't paying attention or you were only mad about it when Fox News was saying, or right-wing media was saying, that it was the Democrats doing these very things. And you never actually cared about integrity. You never cared about voter integrity. You never cared about privacy. You only cared about punishing your enemies. And that's exactly what you're getting with this criminal administration.
Next tab. And so this is, again, more frustration is how much more reliant people are becoming on AI to express themselves instead of learning how to do it themselves. Because there's something about the journey of learning how to do art, of how to express who you are, that makes it more sincere, for one thing, but also connects you to the world. If you rely on some machine, some program to express what you are feeling inside, it's not authentically you. It's a program's interpretation of what you're trying to say, but also from the motivation of profit. It's all about profit. Chat, like AI, they're only doing it because it's based in profit motives, which is totally, there's the AI bubble that's going to burst, of course. And then you have people who are no longer learning to express themselves. And again, it starts to isolate people. It starts to cut off community and all that sort of stuff. Because here we have AI art is art. And there's so many people that are trying to push that. Art is about intent. It's about someone wanting to tell a story or communicate an idea, regardless of what tools are used to produce it. The idea comes from a human. Well, AI art does come from humans, as in it scrapes the internet, takes our stuff, and mixes it in a blender to spit out when somebody prompts something. And it's slop, and it's not accurate, and it is not art. It's just not. Because here's Michael saying, I will not stop saying this. AI art is not art and will never be art. What you do is the equivalent of microwaving a frozen meal and calling yourself a chef. Yeah, I suck at cooking, but I would never order, takeout and then claim to be a good cook because I'm eating this wonderful meal that I had nothing to do with in its creation. Being able to put a prompt in does not make you an artist. It's the beginning of an idea. And here's the frustrating thing. Over here saying, the heartbreaking part is that the left image is literally how drawing starts. Blocking out ideas like this is a common strategy to art. They're so close to creating what's in their head themselves, but instant result culture has normalized skipping the part where people fall in love with the journey of creating. The main goal of art has never been instant product consumption. It feels like society has forgotten all that. And so here they have an AI program, again, just interpreting things. And like, who knows if that is what they actually wanted. But like this blocking that you see here, again, especially when it comes to painting, that's how you start. You just start with blotches for the most part. Or like with me, my pencil art, it takes a while for it to actually look good because it just looks like a scribbly mess for a long time before you start fine-tuning the details and everything. And it's sad because, again, this isn't coming from a person, it's coming from an interpretation. And as an artist, speaking as an artist, I remember as a kid in particular, when I would do paintings and things of that sort, they would come alive to me. And they would actually tell me how they wanted to look. And as I'm doing it, things change. And maybe I feel something different. And when I show you my art, I'll talk about some of it. Or a little mistake leads into a wonderful result. There's all of this stuff that's being missed out. And, you know, it is about the journey. It's about exploring what you're capable of doing. It's about a skill you can be proud of learning, a skill that comes from you, to have a result that says, you know, here's exactly what I did. Here's my interpretation. Here is the image I saw in my head and the work and skill I had to put into it. This is a reflection of me. This bullshit isn't. It's just not. It is just AI slop garbage. And with a little extra time, with a little extra learning, there's no, like with the digital stuff, they could have done this themselves. Like, I'm not going to claim that everyone can be an artist because I hate to break the news. Not everyone has the talent. Not everyone can be an artist. It's like me. I cannot run. I've never been able to run. I can train myself to become a little bit better at running, but I will never be able to do like a marathon or anything of that sort. I am physically incapable of it. I suck at math. You know, and again, it doesn't matter how much I do things. Dyslexia is a pain in the ass when it comes to math or spelling. Like, there are just some things that it does not matter how much I work on, I will just not be good at it. And I'm very fortunate. I'm just naturally good at art. But this is not art. It's about learning what you are capable of. Finding, if you can't express yourself through digital art, find a different way. There are different outlets out there, but you can learn it the best way that you can to express yourself the best way you can. And if you can't end up doing it the way that you want, you hire an artist and do commission. That's what you do, because then you get bullshit like this, which is, again, just mind-boggling. Paul saying, oh, fuck you. And I do agree with it, because Paul had tweeted out, Instagram saw it first. Armo Solo's last painting unfinished because he died, on display at the National Museum of Fine Arts. And then he's quote tweeting himself, well, an image of himself, because we scroll down a little bit, scroll down. Here's somebody saying, Grok, finish the painting. How about not? How about no? Because again, there's a beauty in what this is. It's it is a part of that artist. This project left undone because he passed away. And there's a meaning and a level of expression and feeling and sentiment that you can put into an unfinished piece of art. I've come across unfinished art that I did when I was a kid, and there can be something very profound about having an unfinished piece of art, something that can be its own message. And this, it can, really represent how fragile life is, how quickly it can go, that there can be these things left undone because you pass away. The frailty of life is right there. And, having this unfinished piece of art from this artist is its own art. And it can say so much. And then you can also just be left to wander and use your own brain to imagine how this artist would have finished it. Or you can really project a lot of yourself into the unfinished part, imagining how it would be, as opposed to letting some fucking program, some Nazi program on Twitter finish it for them. But there's something very profound about seeing this, knowing the reason why it's not finished. But it's not just like painting and art that is being just totally destroyed by AI art. Because here is this person saying, cannot overstate how deeply insidious this is, especially considering that we recently lost D'Angelo, a true artist who revolutionized the genre that Sienna Rose, in quotation, is a stolen generic ass patchwork of. Sienna Rose, in quotation, is a modern iteration in a long history of Black artists being economically exploited and discriminated against, in addition to exemplifying the culture scourge that is AI art. I gotta make sure that there's no audio playing on this. Okay. Yeah. So an AI artist named Sienna Rose. Okay. The artist is not Sienna Rose. It is the AI program with a name Sienna Rose has 3 songs getting streamed in the Spotify top 50, and I'm pretty sure nobody knows it's AI artist. Selena Gomez just posted one of the songs on her Instagram for the Golden Globes. So I listened to this song, and it is completely AI generated, but the person who's making it is basically stealing the genre of Black women who did this type of music, who put their heart and soul into creating it as artwork. And you have some, I don't know, white guy could be, that is just stealing it because they know they can make it sell. And there's no heart in this at all whatsoever. It is just a program making up music, but it's getting to the point where you can't necessarily tell if you just listen to it in the background or something and think, oh, it's a catchy beat. Because I listened to the song and it's not bad. It's generic in some aspects, but it's not bad. And considering that, especially in the pop music that we listen to on the radios all day, there's a lot of bad music being passed as good that's from real artists. It's getting harder and harder to tell.
Public service announcement, okay? Now more than ever, we should be paying attention to operational security. We should be paying attention to what we post on social media. We should pay attention to what we take to protests. I believe in recently, even on this space, I believe it was Vizora having a conversation with Matt. They were discussing certain things, and I think I managed to remember catching something about Faraday bags. That is a consideration for operational security, to make sure that you have your phone in a Faraday bag, so that it is not as easily trackable while you're perhaps in a protest area. If you need if you need to have your phone with you. Seriously though, that is a very important thing to bring up. Is Faraday bags like this, to not be as easily trackable when you're in a protest area. I've already opened the dockhouse and just had people about how they're being used. Getting out of the country is a matter of survival. I mean, I don't blame people for leaving. Unfortunately, that's not the option for everyone. So all this to say, the stuff that's been happening in Minneapolis is kind of like ground zero as to it seems to be like at the epicenter of this kind of fascist takeover here. They are going to look at people who protest ICE. Make no mistake, this is a false pretense to say that these people committed any crimes for showing up at the church to protest the ICE goon who is a pastor there. These aren't criminals, these aren't terrorists, they're protesters. And now they want to investigate these people. The DOJ investigates anti-ICE protests at Minnesota church. I mean, I would just frame it like there would be no anti-ICE protests if ICE didn't exist, you know? At any point, ICE can just go away. But anyways, the U.S. Department is investigating. Justice Department is investigating an anti-ICE protest that interrupted a Minnesota church service over the weekend. Oh no. Faraday bags are good. Yes. A group of protesters entered City's church in St. Paul, Minnesota on Sunday, January 18th, alleging that Pastor David Eastwood serves as an ICE St. Paul field office acting director. Not alleging, I think he is. The protest was held less than 2 weeks after the fatal murder of Renee Good, who was murdered by an ICE officer on January 7th. The Twitter post on January 18th, Attorney General Pam Bondi said the DOJ is investigating the protest as a violation. This is phenomenal. This is phenomenal. The right fighting this is only going to spotlight the law they are trying to use. Yep. Of the FACE Act, a federal law that prohibits the use of force, threats, or physical obstruction to block people from reproductive health care or access to religious worship under the First Amendment of religious freedoms. I mean, like, is irony just not is irony just not on the vocabulary? Is this just not on the repertoire here? They're trying to use a law that was put in place to protect people from making sure they're able to get reproductive health, like abortion, or access to religious worship under the First Amendment. So first of all, no one's blocking. There's no like use of force here for protesting a church. Because one of the pastors there is an ICE Gestapo goon. My argument has always been a dot on the map. If they're mapping the protesters, make sure the numbers are overwhelming. ICE cannot deal with so many protesters. Religious services that had protection for centuries. Yeah, but this is not that. Protesting a church because they're hosting a Gestapo goon is not in violation of this whatsoever. This is obviously ridiculous. The same limitations on being able to flee or big parts of why 6 million, about half of the global population of a certain ethnicity, were killed in WW2, despite many or more being able to read the signs. That's true. Not being able to save everyone is not an excuse to save no one. True. Ignore investigators as should be in pursuing the ones that inflame their followers. I just spoke with the pastor in Minnesota whose church was targeted, Bondi wrote in a Twitter post. If state leaders refuse to act responsibly to prevent lawlessness, which, again, protesting ICE, okay? Because, like, just to be clear, this is not a protest against the religion. You see, this is the trick that they're playing here, okay? With this law, with this law, they are not protesting the church because of anything that has to do with religion. They are protesting because of of ICE. That's what's happening here. So make no mistake about it. That's right, the church is just a backdrop. Like if this ICE goon was a firefighter, then they would be protesting the fire station. St. Paul Police Department and Public Information Officer Nikki Milhausen told USA Today that officers responded to the church, but by the time they arrived, a group of 30 to 40 protesters had moved outside. The department is actively investigating the protests as disorderly conduct. Fantastic. A pastor, whatever happened to love thy neighbor? Wrong Jesus. They don't follow Jesus. They follow GOP Jesus. Has anybody seen GOP Jesus? It's by now at this point like years old at this point. Like I wish I was kidding, but it's still so relevant. It's still relevant till this day. The White House press secretary, Carolyn Levitt, said President Trump condemns the protesters' actions. President Trump will not tolerate the intimidation and harassment of Christians in their sacred place of worship. Again, this is a flat-out lie, and this is how they're weaving this Christian nationalism into this. This has nothing to do with Christians. This has nothing to do with Christianity. Okay, Carolyn Levitt is lying. This has everything to do with protesting ICE. That's what this is about. Okay? Doesn't matter what Carolyn Levitt says, doesn't matter what Trump says. This has nothing to do with intimidation of Christians. Okay? These people are so desperate to be victims. It's incredible. It's incredible. The right has been running so much astroturfing, etc. through the churches, have been discrediting religion as a whole, hence the steady rise of atheism. Yeah, that tracks. 1000%. In recent weeks, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has been vocal about this contempt about how, oh, thank God he's been vocal about the contempt, about his contempt about how the federal government is handling Good's murder. Not death, murder, just to be clear. Yeah, I'm so glad Tim Walz has been vocal about his contempt, you know, for all the spinelessness this guy has had. For a moment, Tim Walz gave me just a little bit of hope by initiating the steps to mobilize the National Guard, the Minnesota National Guard. But till date, he has done absolutely nothing meaningful. I've had the federal government's handling. The federal government's handling of Renee Good's murder has been to dismiss any investigations into the murder. That's the government's handling of this, by the way. Notably, the opening of an investigation into him, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, in connection with the conspiracy to impede ICE work in the state. We'll get to that in a second. In a statement with USA Today, Walz's office said the government continues to urge protesters to do so peacefully. Well, thanks, dude. So glad. Thanks, dude. While the people have a right to speak out, and he, meaning Walz, in no way supports the interrupting of a place of worship. Again, this is so frustrating. This is so frustrating. Like, this has nothing to do with the place of worship. This has nothing to do with the church. Okay? This is ceding the point. Why are we talking about church? Okay, the church, as someone pointed out, I think it was Etchbox, correctly pointed out, is simply the backdrop. This is conceding to this nonsense BS narrative that the administration, the regime, is trying to paint. That this is somehow an attack on Christians. Okay, this isn't about ICE. This is an attack on Christians. Okay. And Walz completely falls into that by saying, or by putting out a statement saying that he supports people protesting, but don't interrupt places of worship. This has nothing to do with that. Okay, again, if this guy would have been a firefighter or whatever, that's where the protests would be. They would be at the fire station, or they would be at the place of employment of wherever. It just so happens to be that this guy is a pastor, a Christian pastor. That is secondary to what is happening here. The fecklessness of the Dems needs to end. It really does. Like, it really does. Talking about his feelings, not orders to the Minnesota National Guard and state police to arrest terrorists murdering Minnesotans on Trump's orders. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. That is exactly it. Yeah. There's no notes. 10 out of 10. Like, this is exactly it. Raising awareness. Oh yeah, that's ours. Look at that. That's our motto. As of January 20th, USA Today was unable to confirm Eastwood's alleged role with ICE. St. Paul, Minnesota office City's Church did not immediately respond to USA Today's request for further information on Eastwood's role. DHS declined to provide information on their agents. So yeah, he's definitely a nice guy. If that's the case, then like he's definitely a nice dude. 100%. DHS will never confirm nor deny any attempts to dox our law enforcement. Like, just to be clear, that's not a thing. Okay, these are public servants. These are public servants. You can't dox your local police officer when they're doing their job as a local police. That's not a thing. Okay. These are public officials, whether it be ICE, whether it be police officers, whether it be HSI, whether it be FBI, whatever. That's not a thing, okay? We should know who these people are, okay? We should know who these people are. The Dems are COINTELPRO. Nothing associated with the party can be trusted. Well, I agree. The Democratic Party is lost in space, co-opted, captured, whatever you want to call it. Useless, feckless, all of these things. It begs the question, why are they hiding their identities? Wait, this one. Border Patrol expansion is ICE. Original patrol had few regulations. Yep. ICE doesn't even need to exist. ICE doesn't even need to exist. ICE. I'm older than ICE. I'm older than ICE. DHS will never confirm nor deny attempts to dox our law enforcement officers. They're not law enforcement. Doxing our officers put their lives at risk and their families in serious danger. No, it doesn't. What are you talking about? DHS Secretary Assistant Tricia McLaughlin said in a statement obtained by US Today, doxing refers to publicly provided personal information on an individual online, often without their consent. Well, thank you, USA Today. Yeah, I don't think that's a thing. Right, ICE is an invention on the war on terror. Yep, it was exactly correct. Exactly correct. They're all Proud Boys, 100%. I think the leader of the Proud Boys is rumored to be an ICE, and that came out recently. The leader of the Proud Boys is rumored to be an ICE. So yeah, this is. You ever wonder why we don't hear a lot about the Proud Boys and all these all these far right militia groups like the Oath Keepers and all that? You ever notice that? We kind of, yeah, Enrique Tarrio. You ever notice that they've been kind of silent? Yeah. Methinks a lot of those people, have decided to just switch colors. That's all. And enter in a new profession where they can brutalize minorities and get paid for it. So I would wager real American dollars that a lot of these people, a lot of these ICE recruits are Proud Boys and Oath Keepers and all these people, all these far right people. Yeah. White supremacist militias have joined. Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. There have been several reports of ICE agents having very obvious like Nazi tattoos and whatnot.
Oh, nailed that one. Oh, that's perfect. Can't have bad data if there's no data. Oh, see, you got it. You nailed it. That's a great comment here. It is what they tried to do during COVID as well. Okay, it's what they tried to do. Stop the count. Okay, let's just stop getting the numbers of people who were infected by COVID. If we could stop counting those people, then COVID doesn't actually exist. We saw that during the first Trump administration, and now they've taken that. We're not going to write down the data and expanded it to the EPA now. They are trying to get us all killed. They're trying to get us all killed. And that's the reality of the situation. Biden and Trump both hit COVID data, still are, and an estimated 100,000 are dying annually in the United States. Once again, buttressing the fact that they don't give a damn about us. It has always been about prioritizing the owner-donors of this country, the people who actually run it, which is the billionaires, the oligarchs. And I know people get mad when you talk about oligarchs because you automatically think Russia. No, if anything, they've learned that from us. Just like the Nazis learned how to be Nazis from us. We're not taking after 1930s Germany. 1930s Germany took after us, and we're just going back to our American roots. That's the reality. Okay. Let's move on here. So I want you to imagine something. Imagine if you're an off-duty police officer. Yeah, I know. I know. But you're driving through your own community, right? The same streets that you claim that you're going to protect, right? When suddenly you're boxed in by unmarked SUVs. Masked ICE agents jump out, demanding that you show them your papers. Show me your papers. Look, this sounds like it would be a hypothetical scenario, right? But it's not. It's actually happening right now in Minnesota. And the victims here aren't exactly who you'd normally expect. See, in a shocking escalation of federal immigration enforcement, local police chiefs in the Minneapolis area are now sounding the alarm. They're reporting that ICE agents are targeting their own, the off-duty officers, people of color, okay? So I want to talk about the civil rights violations, the breakdown of law enforcement trust, and why a local police chief says that his department is receiving endless complaints about ICE tactics. So this is, of course, part of a developing story out of Minnesota that has some legal experts and local law enforcement pretty concerned, and they should be. So I'm going to show you Mark Bruley, who was the chief of police in the Minneapolis suburb of Brooklyn Park. So recently he held a press conference that sent some shockwaves throughout the state. He didn't just talk about community members being harassed, which is an obvious problem, but he also revealed that his own officers have been ensnared in what he described as an unconstitutional racial profiling by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. So now I want to get into the specifics here. But first, I'm going to show you the video of what Bruley had said during his press conference. And by the way, as a preface to this, I do want to criticize him just a tiny bit, because prior to the clip that I'm about to show you, he did talk about how, well, we need ICE and we need immigration enforcement. Already 2 gigantic strikes in my book, because I unequivocally want ICE to be abolished. I don't believe that we need it at all. That said, this is coming from, and the source is important here, because this is a police officer. This is someone who generally aligns himself with the law and order crowd and the far right, the right wing. So to have this man come out and say the things that you're about to hear is pretty important. And it shows you just how extreme ICE has become. So here it is.
Recently, as the last 2 weeks, we as law enforcement community have been receiving endless complaints about civil rights violations in our streets from U.S. citizens. What we're hearing is they're being stopped in traffic stops or on the street with no cause and being forced to demand paperwork to determine if they are here legally. As this went on over the past 2 weeks, we started hearing from our police officers the same complaints as they fell victim to this while off duty. Every one of these individuals is a person of color who has had this happen to them. In Brooklyn Park, one particular officer that shared her story with me was stopped as she passed ICE going down the roadway. When they boxed her in, they demanded her paperwork, of which she's a U.S. citizen and clearly would not have any paperwork. When she became concerned about the rhetoric and the way she was being treated, she pulled out her phone. In an attempt to record the incident, the phone was knocked out of her hands, preventing her from recording it. The officer had their guns drawn during this interaction. I wish I could tell you that this was an isolated incident. In fact, many of the chiefs standing behind me have similar incidents with their off-duty officers. This isn't just important because it happened to off-duty police officers, but what it did do is we know that our officers know what the Constitution is, they know what right and wrong is, and they know when people are being targeted, and that's what they were.
And there it is, police being targeted, which to me is not really a surprising development, but certainly for them, for the people who were always on the side of oppressing black and brown people. I mean, after all, Minnesota is where George Floyd had happened. It's a surprise that they're the ones who are actually being affected for once. So now you might be wondering then, how exactly can ICE justify stopping random people on the street or in their cars? To begin with, a recent 60 Minutes interview with a top ICE official, Marcos Charles, shed some light on this, and his answers were, of course, very concerning. Charles explained that if agents are en route to a specific target, they are authorized to talk to anyone they encounter in that area to establish citizenship. Now, when the interviewer, of course, pointed out that the area could basically mean the entire city of Minneapolis, Charles said this. I should say he didn't back down. Okay. The en route logic here effectively turned the entire neighborhood into enforcement zones where constitutional protections against unreasonable search and seizure vanish. They're gone. Again, in one extreme example, agents reportedly dragged a half-naked man out of his home in the freezing cold, only to realize later that he was a U.S. citizen with no criminal record. That person, by the way, DHS went on to lie about. Look, this is not happening in a vacuum. This is part of a massive friction between the federal government and Minnesota state leadership. Okay. Just this week, the DOJ issued subpoenas to Governor Tim Walz, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, and Attorney General Keith Ellison. Federal government claims these leaders conspired to obstruct ICE operations, which is ridiculous. Governor Walz called this political theater and a partisan distraction, and argued that while the federal government is focused on retaliating against politicians, families are scared and small businesses are hurting. Still, I think we need to see more than strongly worded letters against ICE. Now, the reports also suggest that this started with a focus on the Somali community based on a bullshit right-wing YouTube video, okay, from someone who is not a very smart person, okay, can't seem to put two and two together, all right, can't seem to understand why you can't just, barge into a Somali daycare center and demand to see the children while waving a camera in their face. Can't seem to understand why that's a problem. But anyway, this started with that, but was expanded to target people of color more broadly. It's racism. It's racial profiling. You have agents even reportedly asking residents to snitch on their Asian neighbors. Once again, that person that I had mentioned getting dragged out into the snow in their underwear was part of the Hmong community from Laos. Look, all of this brings up a massive issue for public safety, the breakdown of trust. And we've seen a lot of that for very good reason. When the local police, the people who are supposed to be the partners with federal agencies, are now being harassed by those same federal agencies, that part of the system breaks down. Chief Broly noted that if this is happening to trained police officers who know their own rights, of course it's happening to thousands of regular citizens who are too intimidated by this force to speak up. When a community fears their law enforcement, as we have seen all across the country, they stop reporting crimes. They stop acting as witnesses. They stop working with law enforcement. And everyone else becomes less safe. What we're seeing in Minnesota is a landmark moment for civil rights in the 21st century. A clash between federal mandates and the constitutional rights of U.S. citizens, including those who happen to wear a badge. When targeted enforcement becomes anybody we see on the way, the legal definition of a target disappears. And at the end of the day, everyone ends up losing their constitutional rights.
The DOJ serves subpoenas to Walz, Frades, and other Minnesota officials amid immigration crackdown. I hate the framing of some of these, of a lot of these articles. This isn't immigration crackdown. This is straight authoritarianism. This is terrorism. Okay. Enrique Tarrio, white supremacist who is of African Cuban heritage. Yep. Nazi tattoos are legal in the military. On paper, no, they're not legal. On paper, you shouldn't have you shouldn't be able to serve if you have those type of tattoos or affiliations on paper. The Justice Department has sent subpoenas to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey and other state leaders, escalating its investigation into whether state officials conspired to impede law enforcement during the administration's immigration operations, according to a document reviewed by NBC News. So, in other words, they are wielding the Department of Justice against their political enemies, right? What wasn't it the same people that were hemming and hawing about the Democrats wielding the DOJ against Trump or whatever for political purposes? Yeah. Ethnic cleansing, yes. It's propaganda in a way, even if they're not really cops. Yep. The subpoenas also were sent to Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, the Office of St. Paul Mayor Cowley Herr, and 2 counties, according to the document, and the person familiar with the probe. NBC News has reached out to the office for comment. In a statement to NBC News, Frey sharply criticized Trump administration and accused the Justice Department of misusing its power. Well, no duh. No duh. When the federal government weaponizes its power to try to intimidate local leaders for doing their job, every American should be concerned. We shouldn't have to live in a country where people fear the federal law enforcement will be used to play politics or crack down on local voices they disagree with. Well, it's here. It's here. So what are we going to do about it? Right? In Minneapolis, we won't be afraid. We know the difference between right and wrong, and as mayor, I'll continue doing the job I was elected to do, keeping the community safe and standing up for our values. Well, I don't know how much power the mayor has, but if the mayor has the ability to mobilize local police, then they should. In a statement, Ellison said the subpoena was for records and documents, not for me personally. Everything about this is highly irregular, especially... no duh. No duh. Especially the fact that this comes shortly after my office sued the Trump administration to challenge their illegal actions within Minnesota, the state attorney general said. Let's be clear about why this is happening. Donald Trump is coming after the people of Minnesota, and I'm standing in the way. Ellison added, I will not be intimidated, and I will not stop working to protect Minnesotans and from Trump's campaign of retaliation and revenge. The investigation comes after an ICE officer murdered Renee Nicole Good, a citizen and a mother of 3, during an immigration enforcement operation. The murder sparked protests and led to clashes between demonstrators and law enforcement in scenes that have drawn national attention. German YouTubers have been saying it out loud, Hey Wolfie and some others. Yeah, if anyone would know. Cops in Minneapolis arrested 3 ICE agents for disorderly conduct. Oh, wow. Yay. What about murder? What about just to be clear, they should be arrested. I'm not gonna completely poo-poo on that one, okay? I'm just saying, like, what about the murder of a woman in broad daylight? Can we get some arrests for that? Please? The federal statute invoked in the investigation into Minnesota officials has been rarely used and has roots in the Civil War era, which, the irony, man, the irony just keeps happening. But it was on a list of statutes in a memo for Attorney Pam Bondi last month obtained by NBC News that offered a roadmap for federal prosecutors to harass and persecute dissidents. Or what they say are political agitators, okay? But let's be clear, this is a roadmap for cracking down on dissent. That's what this is. Federal officials are also investigating Good's wife, to determine whether she may have impeded a federal officer moments before she was murdered. Oh, well, thank God, let's investigate the wife. We talked about this the other day. But yeah, let's investigate the wife, not the murderer. No, that guy's good. That guy scot-free. We really have to look into whether or not the spouse had broken any laws. Okay? Just to be clear, there's no video evidence of that. Her screaming or her yelling at an ICE officer is not impeding anything, okay? It's on video. Waltz has previously said the only person not being investigated for the shooting of, for the murder of Renee Good is a federal agent who shot her. Great. Quick question, Governor Waltz. Has your office decided to investigate? Because as it turns out, you don't need the federal government's permission to do a investigation by yourself. There's plenty of publicly available evidence that the state of the state of Minnesota can review and press and pursue charges against this officer. There's literally no mechanism holding that back. That's it. Is referring to the ICE officer murderer, a war vet. Oh, this, come on. I hate this. I freaking hate this, man. The way the mainstream media, like, I don't care that he was are we supposed to, like, make this is supposed to be, like, a good thing? Like, look, he's a war veteran, okay? and spent a decade working at DHS. Okay, so let's cut him some slack. Okay, he's decorated. No, bro, he just murdered a woman in broad daylight. The objection is to their lesbian relationship. Yeah, I bet that I bet that factored in. And just to understand, like, the brutality of what's happening here, and that status will not protect you. That's right, Groove Dragon. Yep. And just a reminder, just to kind of touch on that, Groove Dragon, before we finish this. Just to touch up on that, the same people who were clutching pearls and saying the left was making fun of Charlie Kirk, and they were really mean, are the same people who are gleeful and mocking the death of the murder of this woman. And of course, mocking her wife as well. So those are the same people. Just so that we're clear, those are the same people. So don't be afraid, folks. Like, don't give them a single inch, okay? Don't give them a single inch, okay? There's no need to play nice with these people. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? Makes one wonder what people like Ross have been doing overseas in the name of American freedom. Just freedom things, you know. Just freedom things. Little war crime here, a little war crime there. Last article, folks. Your status will not protect you, okay? If you think that this isn't going to affect citizens, it is affecting citizens. If you think that you having legal status is going to protect you, whether you're a citizen, whether you're a legal immigrant, it doesn't matter. Scott Dow of Minnesota says agents pointed guns at his family and his 4-year-old grandson as his 4-year-old grandson watched and cried. If you haven't seen the video, it's pretty horrific. They forced this guy out of his home with basically no clothes in sub-freezing temperatures. Federal immigration agents forced the door open and detained a U.S. citizen in his Minnesota home at gunpoint without a warrant, and then let him out in the streets in his underwear in sub-freezing conditions, according to his family and videos reviewed by the AP. It's on video, yes. Chong Lee Scott Thao told the AP that his daughter-in-law woke him up from a nap on Sunday afternoon, said that ICE were banging at the door of his residence in St. Paul. He said he told her not to open it. Mass agents then forced their way in, pointed guns at the family, yelling at them. I was shaking. He said they didn't show any warrant. They just broke down the door. Amid a huge surge of federal agents into the Twin Cities, immigration authorities are facing backlash from residents and local leaders for warrantless arrests, aggressive clashes with protesters, and fatal shooting and murder of the mother of 3, Renee Good. ICE is not doing what they say they're doing. No kidding, said Cowley Her, the St. Paul mayor, and a, is it Hmong American, in a statement about Thao's arrest. They're not going after hardened criminals. They're going after anyone and everyone in their path. It's unacceptable and it's un-American. If I may, I don't know. This is about as American as apple pie, right? This is pretty American. This is pretty American. Thao, who had been a citizen for decades, said that he was being detained. That as he was being detained, he asked his daughter-in-law to find his identification, but agents told him they didn't want to see it. Instead, as his 4-year-old grandson watched and cried, Thao was let out in handcuffs, wearing only sandals, underwear, and a blanket wrapped around his shoulders. Videos captured the scene, which include people blowing whistles and horns and neighbors screaming at the more than dozen gun-toting agents and to leave Thao's family alone. Thao said agents drove him to the middle of nowhere and made him get out of the car in frigid weather so they could photograph him. He said they feared they would beat him. He was asked for his ID, which agents earlier prevented him from retrieving. Agents eventually realized that he was a citizen with no criminal record, Thao said, and after an hour or two, they brought him back to his house. They made him show his ID and left without apologizing for detaining him or breaking his door. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security described the ICE operation as as a targeted operation seeking 2 convicted sex offenders. Yeah, okay. Okay. The U.S. citizen lives with these 2 convicted sex offenders at the site of operation. The individual refused to be fingerprinted or facially ID'd. He matched the description of the targets. Yeah, so that's not true. That is not true at all. Tao told the AP that only he, his son and daughter-in-law, and his grandson live at the rental home. Neither they nor the property owners are listed in Minnesota Sex Offender Registry. The nearest sex offender listed as living in the zip code is more than 2 blocks away. I mean, like, again, this doesn't need to be fact-checked. We know they're lying. Like, the fact that they even had to, like, entertain this is wild. Why are we entertaining any of this? It's obviously a lie. The only thing that we need to focus on is the fact that this is a common occurrence. Okay, this is becoming more and more common. This is happening to citizens. This is happening to undocumented people who have no criminal record. This is happening to documented immigrants. It does not matter. Your status will not protect you. Okay, your status will not protect you. Okay, if you are a person of color, you are on the menu. Okay. The DHS, of course, did not respond to a request from the AP seeking the identities of 2 convicted sex offenders or why the agency believed they were present in Taos home. Like, why? Why do we need a statement from these people? Why do we need a comment from the DHS? It's a lie. There's no reason to entertain this. Dow's son, Chris Dow, said the ICE agent stopped him while he was trying to drive to work before they went to detain his father. He said he was driving a car he borrowed from his cousin's boyfriend. Court records show that the boyfriend shared the first name of another Asian man who had been convicted of a sex offense. Chris Dow said the 2 people are not the same. The family were particularly upset that by Chong Li Dow's treatment at the hands of the U.S. government because the mother had to flee the U.S. from Laos when communists took over from the 70s, and since she had supported American covert operations in the country and her life was in danger. I mean, here we are, right? Thau's adopted mother, Chow Thao, is a nurse who treated CIA-backed Hmong soldiers in the U.S. government's secret war from 61 to 75 against communists. Oh. According to the Hmong Nurse Association website, Chow Thao, who passed away in late December, treated countless of civilians and American soldiers working closely with U.S. personnel. Chow Li Thao said he's planning to file a civil rights lawsuit against DHS and no longer feels secure to sleep in his home. I don't feel safe at all. What did I do wrong? I didn't do anything. You are a person of color. That's your crime. The crime here was that he was a person of color and he didn't look white. That's the crime. Let's be honest.
Welcome to WYCD Wicked, that stands for What You Can Do. And today, we are discussing what to do about ICE. I don't know if y'all are have been paying attention to the news, but they're killing us. They're executing folks in the streets. I've asked people from my neck of the woods who agree that a way we can combat this we can combat this tyranny is through economic pressure. I want to have a meeting with y'all today, and in a little bit, I'm going to put up a link that will let you join the StreamYard if you want to talk with a microphone, where we can contribute and add our ideas. But I have a basic plan that I'd like to share with you, and then get your input on. That'll do. For how to boycott businesses that provide aid and comfort to ICE. Basically, the idea is this. We go, you know what, let's share this screen. We make note of every gas station that we spot ICE vehicles at. So it's going to require, number one, spotters to report where we see ICE vehicles. And we boycott those gas stations, but we don't do it quietly and we don't do it in secret. We do it very publicly. So those of you who are willing to show your faces and be out there, it's not only you that I need, but those of you who are, I need you to let me know so you can walk with me as I walk over all of Southwest Detroit, every single gas station, and inform them that those businesses that allow ICE to fill up their cars, that sell snackums to these terrorists, that allow them to take a piss, any gas station that does any sort of service for ICE at all will not get the business of the local community. Now, I'm calling you all here because that needs to be something other than an empty threat. That needs to be real action that will happen. So we need two things. Number one, we need people to walk around and inform these gas stations. Share what I'm talking about when I say this. So you can see a bunch of gas stations here. Let's say going from Sunoco up here, then walking as a group down across this chain of gas stations, all the way down to the mobile here. That might be an example of a walk we do. And I want us to start doing these walks where we remind businesses that need reminding and check on businesses, and most perhaps importantly, make it clear to the world what we're doing. I want to start going on these walks every week. I would like to walk with a group of you through chunks of town that have a lot of gas stations in them and start informing them, again, of the very real threat, which we will arrange behind the scenes, of a boycott. It's a time-honored resistance tradition. Now, the key there is very real. That means we need to get enough people in the area. So if you are, say, not comfortable walking around showing your face for whatever reason, well, there's another job we have for you. We need you to go to your churches. We need you to speak at your places of business. We need you to speak anywhere you can get an ear to bend towards you and get these folks on board with the blacklist, the list of gas stations we will no longer attend. We might even be protesting those gas stations. Again, that switches back to the people who are comfortable showing their faces, because the idea here is not that we have anything to hide. The people with something to hide are the Nazis, are the Klansmen who are covering their face, who are murdering people. But again, I understand this is a movement about protecting people. It doesn't make sense to ask the people we're trying to protect to show up and expose themselves. So select the role for yourself that you feel most comfortable with. Why gas stations? Why am I start leading with gas stations? Well, because ICE has to fuel their vehicles. Sometimes they pop in for snacks or coffee, I'm sure. But the main reason is that they have to fuel their vehicles. And if they know that there is wide swaths of town where they cannot get fuel service of any kind, they're going to have to plan their trips differently. They're going to have to patrol differently. We can affect where they are and when they are by denial of service. And we deny service to them by denying our dollars to anybody that will service them. Well, Sandee, it's good to see you. And Bella Lugrisi, good to see you. Last update messes with... Oh, this is not on topic. I'm sorry, buddy. I misread. Now, I also want to bring up something that you guys are going to see, and I'd like you to ignore. It's folks talking like this. And again, nobody respond to this person in the comments right now. And Tucker White, I hope you'll join me again on one of our vertical streams, because I feel that you are supporting a cause which does nothing but take from you. And they do so under the guise of attacking your enemies. But the thing is, the folks that they keep calling your enemies are in your economic class. and it is at the benefit of the oligarchs. I'll discuss that with you in great detail. You don't even have to agree with me. I'll give you my thoughts on it in great detail on another stream. But this stream is not for you. And the only reason you're up here right now is so I can tell the serious people, I'm sorry, but this is a serious stream, not to waste time with a distraction like this, which we are going to see more and more of. In fact, it is a sign that we are doing important things if they are trying to stop us. Mods, if Tucker keeps agitating, time them out, please, and thank you. This is not a stream where we're trying to get a lot of views. This is not a stream where we're even trying to be particularly entertaining. This is an organizing stream. This is the veggies we must eat if we want to live in a free world. I am a windbag commie. Not fully a commie, but you're close enough. And I am a windbag. That is true. But again, this is not the time for your nonsense. Mods where? Pinkerbell, aren't you a mod? Did I not make you a mod? Oi. Yeah. Hold on. Sorry, buddy, but I'm making you. We need people who there we go, have the ability to regulate. I've put trusted folks in charge. All right, so back to it. Thing number one is a boycott of gas stations, wherein we deny ICE the ability to resupply on the road. Make them get all their stuff from the home base, make them have to do a long trip there and back. Thing number two, restaurants. Some of you know people who say that they care about this stuff. But let's be honest, they're not really willing to do anything difficult. They say they care, and they tut-tut, and they say, oh, did you see the news? Oh, did you see what a horrible thing it was? But they don't actually come out to any but the very most notable protests. They don't actually join in any other activity. You get the kind of person I'm talking about. Well, if they say they're on board, here's how we can get them on board in a way that they are comfortable doing. We're going to start making shirts. And when I say we, I mean I'll do it through a company called Redbubble. You can do it through the same company. It's supposedly a shirt. It's supposedly a company that lets you make products for things like my show. But you don't need to have anything special. Anybody can do it. So make a shirt that says on Redbubble or whatever, or with a Sharpie and a white t-shirt that says, I'm here because ICE isn't. That is the phrase. I'm here because ICE is not. And go to restaurants that have refused to serve ICE. So find your fancy friends. Find your friends who are too comfortable to actually do anything to protect folks so far. And give them an opportunity to use the money that they probably have and to use their privilege, use their desirability as customers to reward restaurants that do not serve ICE. In addition, anytime we see a restaurant serving ICE in our area, we must blacklist it. And it's not enough just to blacklist it. We must also tell them why. And that doesn't mean yell at them. That doesn't mean create a new enemy. That means politely but firmly let them know you are on a list. You're on a list of restaurants that serve ICE. And as long as you are on that list, no one in my community will eat at this restaurant. You can get off that list by banning ICE from your restaurant. You put a sign in the window, we'll consider that enough. If we see a video of you kicking ICE out, we'll consider that enough. But we have to see tangibly that you will no longer serve ICE to get off that list. I will make the list. I will publish the list. I need you to help me do that. I have specifically requested Michiganders join this meeting, but truly, anybody in any state can do this. And everybody in every state should. What have we covered so far? We are going to start marching from gas station to gas station on a regular basis, ensuring that these gas stations are either kicking ICE out or are on a list of gas stations we do not attend and do protest. We are also going to start boycotting any restaurant that has ever served ICE unless we have evidence that they no longer serve ICE. Further, we are going to attend restaurants. We are going to flood restaurants that kick ICE out. We are going to reward them with business. And when we do so, hopefully we will be wearing shirts that specifically say why we're there, and we will be ideal customers. We will order a good-sized meal. We will leave a good-sized tip. We will not be rowdy. We will not be a bother. We will simplify our orders to give the waitress and waiter an easy time. We will eat relatively quickly and say our pleases and thank yous and hold the doors for folks on the way in and out. In other words, be ideal customers when you do this. The sort of folks I'm thinking of, the sort of folks who aren't willing to stand out in the cold for other people's lives, but might be willing to have a nice meal that they can pat themselves on the back for, those are masters of manners. That is their greatest strength. They understand manners very, very well. So when you tell them to be incredibly well-mannered, it will have an effect. It will also inform the general public who's out eating dinner and maybe never thinks about this stuff, even though it's happening on their streets. It will inform the general public of the state of things and of the type of people who are against ICE, which should be every single human being with a soul. Ooh, Pinkerbell. Now, as much as I am tempted to try to keep these folks around, because these are the folks I want to talk to, it's time to time out Tucker White. Please, if you don't mind, Knuckles, toss it. Just time him out for 10 minutes. We're not banning him because in a future stream, I would like to reach this man. This man is clearly inundated with propaganda. He's being lied to, and even if we don't like acknowledging this, he is also a victim. He is causing other people to die. That's true. No argument. But he's also a victim. They wouldn't be lying to him if they didn't need to trick him. So time him out, but do not ban him. And you know what? Oh, she did it already. Thank you, Pinkerbell. Although I'll put up the last comment. I share recipes almost daily. Don't have grandkids yet that I'm aware of. All right, so let's look at the map. Actually, I am now pinning the link that you need in order to join me here in StreamYard. If you have input that you'd like. But this would be the time where we would discuss this. Now, let me tell you, this idea evolved significantly within the first few minutes of my even having it, because I was speaking to other organizers and they brought up good points. Once upon a time, I wanted to put a sign in, once upon a time being 5 days ago, I wanted to put a sign in every shop window saying ICE not welcome. And I had some organizers tell me why that's probably not a good idea to accomplish what we want to accomplish. You don't need to be a genius. You don't need to be a strategist of any sort including any experience level. You just need to care to add your ideas in. We might not go with them. We might go with them, but we might not. That's okay. It's more important that we think about this, and we do so publicly amongst ourselves. All right, that sounds contradictory. We do so amongst ourselves, but we also do that publicly so that people we've never met have the opportunity to learn from us and, of course, join in. If we are successful, most people who are involved in this will be strangers to you. If you know a business is immigrant-owned, showing community support is even more important, says Pinkerbell. Agreed. Absolutely agreed. Frequent those businesses. I would say don't do so with your I'm here because ICE isn't shirts, but do frequent those businesses. Absolutely. So we got a couple of logistical things to work out now. The first is where? Where do we report such businesses? I'm going to offer my Discord channel. Let me add a new text channel to it. All right. My Discord, if you are comfortable using Discord, is this right, Chow? I've just created a channel in it called Boycott ICE. There, I would like you to list any businesses where you see ICE cars. If you see it's filling up at a gas station in Detroit, I need to know so that I can take it upon myself to publicly get them. Go to that business and say, look, people will not come here anymore because I've just put you on a list of businesses we don't go to. But what I also need from you, and I might find a better way to organize this, we're probably going to do multiple channels. I need you to gather people and tell me how many people you actually have. How many people who are willing to check a list and change their day according to that list. In other words, people who are, when their gas tank is just about empty, will take the time to open up their phone and search to see if the gas station that they are attending or that they are planning on going to is or is not aiding ICE, helping kidnap U.S. residents. It's not a big ask that we're asking of people. I want you to remember, in other days, people got bitten by German shepherds and sprayed with fire hoses. We're getting killed, true, but we're not even asking folks to do that. We're asking people to simply refrain from doing business at certain places. You have the moral right to guilt trip folks if they give you any hesitation. If they say they're about this, if they're saying, ooh, isn't it awful? If they see the headlines, if they see that Keith Porter Jr. was murdered in his backyard, if they see that Renee Good was murdered in front of her dog in earshot of her child, in front of her wife, if they see that Kyle Pretty was doing nothing but holding up a cell phone and got shot in the back a dozen times, that they'll actually respond in some way, that they'll actually do something. If they see that these things are bad and they say, ooh, isn't it bad? Isn't it awful? That you have something they can do. Say, you believe that? You think that ought to stop? You think there should be pressure? Okay. Here's a list of gas stations I need you to not go to. Print it off, keep it in your car. We'll update you when you can go to new ones. I need numbers from you, folks. I got 18 people. In the whole country, there's 18 people right now interested in what I have to say. Odds are 10 of them are from the Detroit area. Fine. We can start with that. If each of you get 5 people, that's 50 human beings worth of business that do or do not go to certain businesses. That's potentially 50 human beings who will join me to walk up and down the street saying we are boycotting ICE. Yeah, well put. Showing ICE the door at this establishment. Absolutely. You know, you'd think, T-Bone, you'd think, but I'm mostly just poor. I'm just poor and I have cheap clothes with holes in them. Not even from interesting. Oh, wait, you know what? That probably is from weed. Never mind. All right. So I'm going to keep it short. If nobody has specific comments, I want to remind you one more time, though. Very shortly, we are going to be marching from business to business. As soon as I can get enough people to walk with me, and enough, crucially, enough people for our threats not to be hollow. I'll be doing the speaking. I'm going to walk up to the business owners if they're there, or simply the gas station attendants. I will hand them a printout that says exactly why we're there and what the conditions are. But I need you to help me make that threat mean something. Get as many Detroiters as you can on board. If you are members of a bowling league, a church, the PTA, anything wherein a group of like-minded people gather, your job is to speak to them. If you've heard the words coming out of my mouth, your job is to find someone, anyone in your life who agrees with you, get them to agree to boycott businesses, and then let me know. Again, in the comments, you can see a link to the Discord. We're going to switch the pinned comment, as a matter of fact. There you go. New pinned comment. Join me in my Discord if you like, so we're not entirely bothering the general strike, but I will be bothering the general strike because this is flexing our economic muscles. And folks seem to agree that that is a good way to combat ICE. So let's do it. It's not all talk. It's got to be action. We're going to be gathering as many people as possible. That's your job in the next few days. Gather folks. Tell me how many you got. Detroit area folks. I suppose I'll make a separate section. Good to see you, Donald James X. And T-Bone. And Manda the Pivot. Everybody. It's good to see you. But gather all the folks you can who agree with this idea. And then let me know in my Discord so I know how much sway we actually have. Then I am going to be marching from business to business throughout Southwest Detroit to start informing them. You may join me. It will be more effective if you join me. It will be even more effective if you can get others to join me. But you don't have to do that if you want. I'm happy to go out there on my lonesome. I won't feel as bad about vaping then. Finally, this is for all of us, but especially for those of us who have wealthy family members that love to go out to eat and talk like they are card-carrying hippies, but don't actually tend to do anything. Maybe even donate to both political parties to try to get ahead in life. Folks like that. We are going to be boycotting restaurants that serve ICE, and crucially, attending restaurants that don't serve ICE to give them a boost in business. We want to play on people's greed as much as we want to play on their decency. The goal is to ostracize ICE from America. The eventual goal is to put as many of them, this is for me, I understand, not for you, but I'll just be upfront, is to put as many people who participated in ICE in prison as possible, because they are murderous. They are lawless. They are un-American, and it is my sincere hope that they are fully out of the country while I still have some non-gray hairs. But in the meantime, we need to protect our neighbors. We need to protect ourselves, which means we need ICE out. And we get ICE out by ensuring, one building at a time, they know they are not welcome. We do that by leveling economic consequences for it. No matter what else they say, it's not illegal to not buy something. So we're going to use that. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. I hope to see the real ones in the Discord.